Welcome to Really Fun Math with Miss Colvang. Okay, workshop people. This is the essentials of dot plots. It is our next statistical representation of data. So it's going to be a shorter lesson than last time, and then you are going to do a Google form because we do not have class on Friday. So all of your assignments are going to be today. So today's plan, watch the video as a review of dot plots, and then as I already said, complete the Google form over dot plots linked on the virtual learning calendar. Objectives. There's only one today. I can read and interpret a dot plot and answer questions about its basic features. Again, part of the reason why we were doing this data and statistical analysis unit was to prepare for state assessments and map testing. So that is still, the kind of thing you might see on an ACT or a standardized test in the future. And most of the time, you're just going to be answering questions about it. So what is a dot plot? On the left is an example. I'm sure you've seen one of these before, but the official definition is a frequency plot that shows the number of times a response occurred in a data set, where each data value is represented by a dot. So if you look at the example on the left, there is a dot for each time that number appears in the data set. So for example, if I were to write this out as a data set, it looks like I have 0.5. So I have 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. I have it 6 times. I know that because I have 6 dots over 0.5. And then I would have 2 ones because I have 2 dots over 1. And I would have 3 1.5s because I have 3 dots over 1.5. So you could kind of keep going that way, but basically the number of dots over the number line tells you how many of that certain number you would have. So I'd have 1 2, 2 2.5s, 2 3s, 4 3.5s, and 4 4s. Some people, I think, can wrap their brains around how dot plots work, and they don't have to rewrite out the data in a list or in a list like this with commas. But other people, dot plots would be harder to conceptualize, and so you can just write it out, and that will make it easier. Now, as with all the data representations we've talked about, there are always pros, there are always cons. Pros of a dot plot are that they're simple to make. It shows each individual data point, and it's a good visual overview of the data. So you can see, based on how many dots are above certain numbers, things such as the mode of data, the minimum, the maximum of data. A lot of those things can be seen easily just by looking at a dot plot. However, there are some cons. It can be time consuming to make if there is a lot of data. So if you have hundreds of data points and you're making a dot plot by hand, that's going to take a really long time. It is really best for showing whole number, not partial quantities. So anytime you're dealing with decimals or fractions, dot plots become a lot harder to read. And it requires counting to get a total of the data points. So if you have a dot plot that has 500 different dots on it, you're going to have to count each and every one of those up to figure out how many data points there are total. So one way that you would see this on a standardized test is you would be asked questions such as minimum, maximum, mode, and median. That would be a really common way to see this because you're asked to find those aspects of a lot of data representations, and dot plots would be included in that. So the following data was taken about 8th grade students and how long they take to eat breakfast. Use the dot plot to find the minimum, maximum, mean, and mode. Again, some of you are going to be able to look at the dot plot and get all of these pieces of information straight off of it. Others are going to want to list out the data in a list, so I'm going to show you how to do it both ways. First, if we wanted to put this in a list, all you would do is you'd look at the number of dots over each number. So for example, I have 6 dots over 0. So that means in my list of data, I would have 0 6 different times. So it's telling me how many times 0 occurs in the data set. I have 2 dots over 1, so 1 would occur twice in the data set. And you can continue along this way. I have 3 2s, I have 5 3s. essentially making this a list of data and really kind of removing the dot plot entirely. Once you have written out the entire list, the dot plot is not really needed anymore because we are used to finding data from lists anyway and answering questions about lists. So this is certainly an option. But you can see even me going through and doing it, and I'm probably, on the faster side of doing this, it does take some extra time. So it's just kind of a sacrifice you have to make. If you are not confident reading dot plots and understanding how they work, then you will have to go through and make a list. And even for this, there's quite a bit of data that I had to go through and figure out. So again, that's just interpreting the dot plot. But then you can go through and see how you can either use the dot plot or the list to find the minimum or maximum, and then the mode or the median. So the minimum is always going to be the smallest number in our data set. Again, you could read that off the dot plot and say, okay, well, I know that 0 minutes to eat is the smallest number of minutes you can spend on eating breakfast. So the minimum would be 0. If you're spending 0 minutes eating breakfast, you are not eating breakfast. Okay. Maximum is the longest a student would take eating breakfast. That's going to be 12 because that is the largest number that has a dot over it. And again, you could also go through and do that on the list. So 0 is my smallest number, 12 is my largest number. The mode is going to be the number that occurs the most often. And honestly, I think it's easier to tell that from the dot plot. The way you would find that on the dot plot is you would look for the number that has the most dots over it. So it looks to me like there are two numbers that have the most dots, 0 and 10. 0 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots, and 10 has 7. So that means that I have 10 occurring the most number of times, which would make it my mode. You could also go through and count that from the list, but again, I think visually, that's one of the benefits of the dot plot, that you can see that. The median is another thing you could do on the list. Typically when we do a median, we're trying to find the number that is on the, it's at the middle of the data set. So the way we normally do that is we go through and we cross out the lows and the highs. So let's see, I'm going to do 5 lows, 5 highs. 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it perfectly ended on these 2 5s. I got a little ambitious. There's 2 5s in the middle, so that means the average of 5 and 5 is 5, meaning the median of the data set would be 5. Here's the other way you can do this, and I think doing it on a dot plot honestly is quicker. You can do your highs and lows on here by crossing out the dots. So 12 and 11s, those are the max, the 5 biggest numbers. You can get rid of 5 of the zeros. And then you can keep going. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, and you can see same thing happened. I ended up with the 5s as my median. So 2 different ways to do that. It looks crazy. It's a lot of crossing out, but again, it is the exact same type of questions we've asked you, just with a different data representation. Maybe where this gets most challenging is if I ask you to make a dot plot yourself. And really, again, dot plots are so similar to lists of data that I don't think it is a daunting task, but it is something that you definitely want to kind of think through and figure out what the steps would be. So the scenario is 18 students were asked how many text messages they had sent since waking up. So you wake up in the morning, before you get to school, you send some text messages. And then, for example, I could ask you how many text messages you had sent before coming to first hour. So the following data was collected. Make a dot plot to represent the data. Couple different options here. You definitely have to figure out the smallest number of text messages sent and the largest number sent. So if I'm looking at this data, 0 would be the smallest number of text messages sent and 9 would be the largest. And the reason you have to do that is because every dot plot has a scale along the bottom. So it has to at least go from 0 to 9. And then I would want to go through and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as my different data labels. Now, you are welcome to go through and put these data in order, so you could list out from low to high, but I honestly think that it's just as fast to go through and just draw dots over the numbers. So for example, I know I have 0 once, so I'm going to put a dot over 0 and cross it out. Then I have 3, so I put a dot over 3 and cross it out. I have a dot over 2 because I have at least 1, 2. Then I have a 0 again. Do you see how that works? So each time 0 appears in the data set, it is going to get another dot, and that is going to make sort of that column of dots that lets me know how many zeros are in my data set. I can continue going in this way. So 4 gets a dot, 5 gets a dot, 4 gets another dot. I'm like, Oprah, you get a dot, you get a dot. 3 gets a dot and another one. And then I just keep going like that. So 1, 4, 5, 9, 6, 0, 3, 2, 3. Okay, so that's a very basic way of making a dot plot. And again, you could order those, but I think it's just as fast to go through each number and add a dot every time. But that would be a basic example. In reality, what would probably happen on a standardized test is you'd be given a data set and you would be told to choose the dot plot that corresponded with that data. So just keep that in mind as well. So this is a relatively short lesson. We're already to the Family Fun Challenge. So pick someone at your house and add a picture or video of you explaining the following math problem to them. Share it in the comment section below. I also have posted the Family Fun picture sharing link, and I will post the correct answers later this week. So it says use the dot plot below to answer the questions. How many students took the test and what is the median test score? So it says a dot plot of weekly test result averages, and it has a bunch of data points on there. So go ahead, pause the video, make somebody in your family help you or explain it to them to answer those 2 questions. How many students took the test and what is the median test score? All right, now that you are done with the Family Fun Challenge, we're going to take a look back at our objectives. The goal of today's lesson was I can read and interpret a dot plot and answer questions about its basic features. Think to yourself, hey, can I do that? Do I feel confident in that area? Or is that something that I will continue needing to work on? One way that you can tell is you are going to be doing a short assignment over dot plots using Google Forms. It is linked on the learning calendar, and you will get an idea if you understood it based on getting correct answers or not. If you are still struggling, you're welcome to rewatch this video. There are also a lot of things on dot plots out there that can help you better understand them. And that's it for the lesson. Thanks so much. Do your assignment, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.